I have been sitting here thinking about this team, and honestly, the Cleveland Browns wide receiver group has officially transformed from the laughingstock of the league into a unit suddenly overflowing with options. We are no longer debating if we have talent, but rather who even deserves the fourth spot on the roster as training camp kicks off. This shift is massive because it signals that the front office finally addressed our biggest glaring weakness from last season. And honestly, the more details come out, the harder it is to ignore what is going on behind the scenes. Please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop your name and city in the comments. Let's get into it. The Cleveland Browns wide receiver group is undergoing a massive transformation as we prepare for the 2026 training camp, moving from a unit once ridiculed as the league worst to a position of genuine intrigue. According to Chris Picorni at Dogs by Nature, we are no longer staring at a barren depth chart, but instead debating the competitive fight for that critical fourth receiver spot. This shift is a far cry from the uncertainty we faced in recent seasons, providing us a refreshing sense of optimism as the team sharpens under head coach Todd Monken. While it is a positive sign to have such depth, we must remember that roster spots are earned through consistency rather than preseason projections. This is where it gets real, because while the talent pool appears deeper, the transition from paper to the gridiron is where reputations are truly forged in the AFC North. We have watched this roster evolve under the direction of Jimmy Haslam, and for the first time in years, the tension in the building feels focused on refinement rather than a desperate search for basic competency. The shift from desperation to internal competition is the most significant development of this offseason. Beyond the receivers, the city is also turning its attention to the administrative side of the game, as the Brook Park City Council recently approved a community authority to manage the new stadium complex under construction. Residents have raised important questions about oversight, creating a unique backdrop of civic change alongside our on-field progress. With these two major narratives moving in tandem, we have to ask ourselves a pressing question for the upcoming practices. If the depth is truly as substantial as advertised, which veteran will see their role minimized when the final cuts are announced? And could that shift alter the chemistry of our starting offense? The most surprising development in Berea is that the Cleveland Browns wide receiver room, once considered the league's most ridiculed unit, has transitioned into a position of genuine competition for roster spots. We are now debating who secures the number 4 role, a sharp contrast to previous years when the front office scrambled for basic competence. This shift stems from aggressive offseason roster adjustments aimed at providing head coach Todd Monken with depth that was glaringly absent during last year's campaign. Historically, our team has struggled with shallow receiving core that left our quarterback isolated, but front office moves indicate a commitment to changing that legacy of mediocrity. Here's what people are missing, which is that behind closed doors, the staff views this sudden surplus as a strategic insurance policy against the wear and tear of a grueling season. While ESPN reports that NFL trends are moving toward versatile defensive players like the Ravens and Seahawks deploy, we are focused on offensive parity to counteract those complex schemes. By building a deep rotation, the front office is likely prioritizing flexibility over top-heavy spending, hoping to avoid the common trap of relying on a single star who could be sidelined by injury. We have seen this rebuild cycle before, but this iteration feels more grounded in fundamental roster depth rather than chasing splashy names that rarely pan out over the long term. If we can maintain this level of healthy competition through the final cuts, our offense will be far more unpredictable than what we endured last year. The stadium situation in Brook Park remains a separate but vital narrative as the community authority begins oversight. Yet the real urgency remains on the field, where the coaching staff knows that having too many options is a far better challenge than having none at all. Turning the page toward a new season requires us to acknowledge that the landscape at the wide receiver position has shifted beneath our feet. For years, we endured constant criticism about the quality of our pass catchers. But as Chris Picorni recently highlighted for Dogs by Nature, we are suddenly discussing depth instead of desperation. This matters right now because it signals a fundamental upgrade in talent under head coach Todd Monken, proving that the front office has finally addressed our most glaring personnel deficiency: Here is where it gets interesting as we look at the immediate impact on our depth chart. Moving from a group that was considered the worst in professional football to one where we are legitimately debating who earns the fourth receiver spot creates healthy competition that drives excellence during training camp. This roster stability directly changes our offensive identity, allowing us to dictate terms against division rivals like the Baltimore Ravens. While the Ravens currently rely on utilizing versatile safeties and big nickel packages to disrupt the slot, our improved options at wide receiver provide the perfect countermeasure to neutralize that specific tactical advantage. By forcing defensive coordinators to respect our secondary targets, we create space for our primary threats to operate down the field. This evolution is the key to elevating our standing within the AFC North and strengthening our playoff aspirations as we enter the 2026 campaign. Additionally, the formation of a community authority to manage the new stadium complex ensures that our home field advantage remains a central pillar of the organization long into the future under Jimmy Haslam. Everything is finally aligning, from the physical construction in Brook Park to the tactical adjustments on the practice field, giving us every reason to believe that this team is built to compete at the highest level when the games actually count. The shift in our wide receiver room under Todd Monken is truly night and day compared to last year. The upside here is massive because we have moved from a group that was heavily criticized to a unit with actual depth. When you have so many viable options, opposing defenses cannot simply lock down one target. The part fans are not ready for is the reality that depth often leads to inconsistent production if the chemistry is not perfectly balanced. The downside is that while we have options, we lack a clear hierarchy, which could result in a stagnant passing attack if no one steps up to command the targets when the game is on the line. According to ESPN, the trend across the NFL involves using versatile safeties as big nickels to disrupt the slot, a strategy that has already proven highly effective for the Baltimore Ravens and the Seattle Seahawks. This defensive evolution makes our receiver battle even more critical because the room for error in the slot has vanished. As Cleveland Browns fans, we are left wondering if we are truly loaded or just flush with average talent that needs a true leader. Here is where I land on this. I believe the excitement about our wide receiver depth is slightly overblown by local outlets like Dogs by Nature. While having competition for the number 4 spot is a positive change of pace, it does not magically fix the need for a true number 1 playmaker. We have upgraded the floor of this roster significantly, but we should not confuse a deeper bench with having a championship caliber core. It is a better situation than last season, but we still have plenty of work to do before we can call this group a genuine strength of the offense. As we look at the current trajectory of this franchise under the leadership of Todd Monken and ownership by Jimmy Haslam, it is clear that we are building toward a sustainable future defined by depth and stability. The truth is that seeing a roster transition from being one of the most ridiculed groups in the league to one where we are actually debating the identity of our 4th wide receiver is a sign of significant organizational progress. When you combine this newfound offensive depth with the ongoing development of the new stadium complex by the Brook Park City Council, it indicates that the Browns are focusing on long-term infrastructure, both on the grass and in the community. You should feel genuinely optimistic heading into this season because this team is finally addressing its weakest links with legitimate competition rather than just empty promises. While experts from ESPN note that teams like the Baltimore Ravens and Seattle Seahawks are finding success with specialized safety roles, our ability to cultivate internal talent gives us a unique competitive edge that we have lacked for years. It is refreshing to see a focus on real skill development during these sessions in Berea, as it suggests a culture change that will pay dividends when the games start counting. With these developments, we have a clear path forward that balances physical assets with smarter roster management. Now that you have seen the depth chart shaping up, I have a specific question for you. Do you believe the current wide receiver room is finally deep enough to lead us to a deep playoff run this coming year? Or do we still need to add one more veteran piece to the roster? If you enjoyed the video, do not forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Dawg Pound. I'll see you in the next one.